What's up, everyone? I'm Ian McCarthy of Lifting for Life, and the positivity of response to my last video inspired me to make another video sooner than I expected. So I first want to say thank you to all of you who watched, commented, liked, etc. I was pleasantly surprised, which can happen in life. And what I want to talk to you about today is what I perceive to be a good example, at least for one person, of where a really pure scientific perspective on fitness can be perhaps not the best perspective. Now, I prefer, to get to the crux of this, I have found that I prefer using short rest times in my training. I don't typically actually time them, but I think very often we're looking at 45-second or 60-second long rest periods. Now, why is this even worth noting? Well, if you look at the literature on rest times, and there are quite a few well-designed studies on this, most of the studies I've seen do favor long rest periods in terms of both volume but ultimately hypertrophic outcomes. And I am thinking about this from the perspective of hypertrophy primarily. And certainly you need to ask the question, you need to look at individual studies. Look at what kind of rest periods are they comparing, what are the characteristics of the subjects, etc. But again, I think that the research as a whole supports the view that long rest periods are superior to a point because they allow you to recover more between sets, you do more total work, and then the evidence is overwhelming for volume scaling with hypertrophy, at least to a point on average. Now, the reason why I found that I strongly prefer short rest periods is I'm much more focused when I'm training, when I don't allow myself to rest too long. Because let's say I were to commit to resting for 2 minutes between sets, because research supports that. Again, it's going to depend on the study. Now, I could be very rigid about that. I want to acknowledge that I could literally use a stopwatch, etc. But what I find happens in practice when I try to rest more with the intent of whether it's lifting heavier, just doing more reps from one set to the next, etc., I get unfocused. And what ends up happening is what could be done in an hour maybe gets done in an hour and a half. And this is clearly a loss, at least in terms of efficiency. And interestingly, sometimes what will happen, it's not just a matter of maybe mental focus, is for lack of a more scientifically substantive analysis, I can outrun fatigue in the sense that I don't want to say regardless of what I do, but there seems to be a temporal element to fatigue, meaning just having to do with the length of a workout. So what that means is it isn't just a matter of efficiency, but sometimes I will actually even get more done in shorter sessions as a function of these shorter rest periods. And I know this through experience, I think is my central point. I'm not saying I haven't considered the science. I haven't looked at it. Science is bullshit. That's certainly one perspective that some people take, and that wouldn't be mine. But what I would say is you can't draw a straight line from this is what the science as a whole supports generally to this is exactly what every individual trainee should do. You do need to consider things like what does someone's schedule allow for? I mean, that's a huge thing. If they're literally only able to train 45 minutes, there is no flexibility on that. Shorter rest periods would be advantageous. Sheer personal preference. Someone just likes shorter or longer rest times, or something which I think is more concrete than just preference, this issue of focus and is the person do they end up wasting time seeking out longer rest periods, etc. And I'm sure that there are other considerations that one would need to consider in order to have the most complete and reasonable perspective on this. And again, as opposed to I gave the example of the perspective which simply says experience is everything, scientific evidence is bullshit, but also the perspective that says this is what the science supports, this is what people need to do. And I do want to end by noting I'm not sure how many people really believe all science is bullshit, we should completely ignore scientific evidence, and I'm also not sure how many people really believe experience doesn't mean anything, you should just do what the literature says. But I think it's helpful. I think had someone made a video like this that I had watched with an open mind 5 years ago, I would have really benefited from that. So hopefully at least one of you are kind of where I was 5 years ago, but more open-minded. So thank you so much for your time, guys. I appreciate you watching, and I'm not responsible for my hair, for the record. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm in the groove. I think I'll see you again soon. Thanks again.